Hello, everyone, and welcome back to JaianMusic Notes. Today is the final episode on this little series I brought to you where Kudus, Gordon, and I talk about the music in different animes. The last two episodes we covered Cowboy Bebop and Attack on Titan. This time around, we're doing a classic. We're talking about Death Note. This was a conversation that I've had with Kudus a while ago, back when I was doing Anime Podcasters. I re-edited our conversation to present it to you here on JaianMusic Notes. So I'm very excited for you all to listen to this. Go check out Kudus. All of Kudus' links will be in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to JaianMusic Notes. And the sponsor of the podcast is Laser Audio Technologies. If you use code JaianMusic, you get 25% off all of their creative effects plugins, and all of the money generated from that code goes straight back into the podcast, such as GoPro Kyo, who does all of the artwork. Thank you so much, and enjoy the conversation. Today, I'm very excited. With me, I have someone that you may be familiar with if you were a fan of Soundspace, a podcast that used to be. Today, we have Kudus Gordon with us in the studio, in the flesh. How are you, man?
Good evening, Mr. Jaian. I'm quite well. I'm pretty stoked to talk about this show that we were watching 5 minutes ago. So it's nice and fresh in my brain, you know. I have some I've been writing some thoughts about it for the past 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
It's been ruminating, it's been fermenting in my brain. The thoughts have been, progressing.
Yeah.
And I got a lot to talk about because I'm brand new to this. I'm brand new to anime in general. So I'm stoked. Let's do it.
Kudus, if you do not know, is very well versed in everything that is music, knows music theory very well, much better than me. And I'm really going to go in there with him to, break down the Death Note soundtrack.
Alrighty.
Are you good to go?
We should probably start out by saying, I guess, spoiler alert, maybe? Are we going to be like giving away stuff?
No spoiler.
For the record, I am not, I'm 5 episodes into this show now.
Yeah.
So if I say something wrong or get a detail wrong, don't
worry about it. We're here for we're just talking about the music in Death Note, really.
Okay. But I am also going to be talking about like how it kind of connects to
right. No,
you're
fair enough. Fair enough. That's a valid point. Where I want to start with you, Q, I guess, is Death Note really has an eclectic soundtrack. We're talking about a bunch of songs that vary from like we have openings that are basically like heavy metal. And we have orchestral tracks. We have atmospheric tracks, which we went over earlier. It's really a wide range of music. And so just break down to me like your initial thoughts on the music in this anime.
That was my initial thought. That like eclectic sort of mishmash of different, like some of it, I was listening to it, I was like, okay, this sounds fairly, like Western kind of Hollywoodish, like traditional orchestral approach to a soundtrack. And then other flourishes of that scene, like if you ever watch those detective movies, those noir films from the 40s.
Of course, I think film noir is a great example.
We were talking about the, it's kind of, L, I think it's his theme. It's kind of just whenever there's a mysterious sort of intrigue moment, they do that bump 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 bump, and it like echoes out. There's a really sweet like delay on it, and that reminds me of those old like detective stories a lot because that's usually the music that would accompany it. However, there's a mixture of sort of like more traditional Japanese like music in there, which is obviously I'm less kind of like familiar with that, but I can hear the influence of it in those kind of modern stuff. Right. So we're gonna get into all that, but I was pretty impressed by that because there's usually like usually if you cast too wide a net like that with like whoever the music supervisor is, it starts to all like oil and water, you know what I mean? Like it's difficult because usually you want like, okay, this is the aesthetic, you stick to that, and it's kind of like narrow, but it wasn't bothering me, and I was surprised. I thought it would because as the show was going on, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's orchestral, and then it switched to something. I was like, oh, okay, they've got, and then the whole thing is cap ended by like a heavy metal like track. Like the credits less so than the intro. The intro is like really like fast and thrashy, but
when we get to the opening actually changes when we get further into the series.
I was reading about that.
Yeah, and I mean we can start with this one. The world, the opening of the first season of Death Note. Oh, melodic and extremely nostalgic for me is the two words I was attribute to it right away.
How old were you when you started watching this?
So I was, this was probably 2014, 2015, and like, so when I heard the opening, I was like, this is something I want to cover one day. This is something I want to cover. What I really like about this song is that you have jumpy melodies. I feel like it's always, the progression of the music is always changing. I know we jump like verse, chorus, and we have a bridge in there, but overall, I feel like the sonic structure is just, there's always a new element in there. There's like maybe a bit more of a twinkle on the guitar, or a bit more of a dig into the bass. You know what I mean? Or like a bit more of a drive into the drums. It's always changing, and that's what I love about this song, The World. You know which song I'm talking about.
Those are your first thought? When you heard it, you were like, I want to cover this?
No, I would say
because that's an ambitious one.
That is an ambitious thoughts. I mean, I knew I wanted to cover it after listening to it like multiple times. I think that's more of the accurate description there. But you see what I mean when I describe the music, like how it like
I do. Yeah, I see what you're saying. That was my first thing that I wanted to address, since like we may as well go in order.
Go ahead.
Intro makes sense as the first thing to talk about. So there is, I want to talk a little bit, like kind of go back and talk about why anime and metal are connected.
Okay.
Because I feel I don't know much about anime and the culture around it. I know a lot of people that are super into it, but I was a metal kid, in my teen years.
That's true. You are. I mean, and you still
to this day,
still are.
To this day, yeah. I love it, and I would say that metal, it's safe to say, as an art form, has its roots in kind of British and American, music. Like it goes back to like blues and like early days of rock. That's kind of where it's, in the evolution tree. If you look at like I don't know if you've seen that chart.
Yeah, it stems from that.
Yeah, it stems from that. But when I was reading about like I was wondering like why is this culture so connected with metal? I wasn't sure exactly what the reason was, so I was kind of reading back on like the Japanese metal scene. And I learned something interesting, which is that Japanese metal bands have been there almost since the very, very, very beginning of metal.
I'm not surprised by that. I just feel like Japan's music scene has been very innovative.
Yeah.
And I feel like they've been at the forefront of a lot of like musical ideas. So hearing that does not surprise me.
100%. Yeah, I was reading, there's a band that I've never heard of. They're called the Flower Traveling Band. And they have been putting out sort of like, I guess I would call it proto-metal stuff since shortly after the first Black Sabbath album. So that is
what year is that?
That was 1969.
Wow.
The self-titled Black Sabbath album. Most, I would say, music scholars would call that the first metal album. And it was shortly, I think it was later that year that the Flower Traveling Band was putting out their first stuff. So Japanese culture and metal culture have been kind of linked since legitimately from the very start.
That's actually super interesting. I did not know that.
I think that plays a big role into as why so much of the anime that is popular has like either a metal theme or a metal. But I'm gonna get into that more because it is not any type of metal. It's a very specific sort of like subgenres. Okay, so like in the 70s, obviously metal was kind of like it was a fracturing out. There were like different sort of avenues of it that were gaining popularity. And I find that the type of metal that appears in anime soundtracks is usually of the flavor that's like, Ronnie James Dio, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. Like this is very bright.
Flashy is the word.
Flashy. It's very like kind of heroic sounding as opposed to demonic and dark and depressing like Black Sabbath.
But I would say that the second opening in Death Note has a demonic element to it, man. Like it spins.
Okay. So
it's called What's Up, People. I guess you haven't had the chance to listen to it, but it's like it goes hard. It's super fast, and we're talking about like we have literal screamo in there.
Oh, okay.
Like literal screamo.
Right.
So I would say that Death Note plays the gamut in what you're describing because we have like The World, which and it's not really a metal track, but it has metal influences. But like What's Up, People is definitely like the metal song of Death Note for me. It comes second half of the series.
So is that the part of the series that takes a kind of darker turn? Like, would you say that it follows the trajectory of the tone of the show?
I would say that. Yeah. Without spoiling for you, obviously, because I really want you to watch this.
Of course.
A lot of bad stuff happens, and the people that you don't want to get the upper hand or may want to get the upper hand get the upper hand.
Well,
and
you know
it
what?
shifts the tone.
I've
There's a
heard
big
I've
tone
heard
shift.
people say a lot that the second act of a 3-part story is the dark point. It's the lowest point of the characters when they hit a challenge and falter. It's like I don't know. The Empire Strikes Back is the
Right.
second.
No, that's a good
of the
example.
three,
That's a good
you know?
example. But like
That's always the way those stories are structured. So it makes sense to put the dark theme kind of like halfway through.
in the back half, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But like when you were saying like how the fusion of metal music with anime, I don't know if you would agree with this, but I find that the Death Note music is very fusional in general. I feel like we have like rock tracks, and then we fuse that in, and then next thing you know, you're listening to an orchestral tracks, and even some of the orchestral tracks, like I'm thinking like Light's theme, I believe, like I feel like there's like some songs that have electronic elements as well.
Yeah.
What do you think of like just like the fusion, like kind of jumping off what you're saying there, like the fusion of genres kind of blending in together when we talk about?
Well, I think the editors on this show are very smart because they know what type of scenes can just play out without any score at all,
Right.
just speaking or just like sort of sounds of the city.
Yeah, just like
very good,
ambience and
just
dialogue.
Foley and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of moments like that, and they'll let those scenes play out for quite a while before they reintroduce music. So the fact that the fact that the music is almost of a completely different genre when it returns,
Yeah.
it's not jarring because they give it the breathing room in between. I think that was a very intelligent decision from them.
Yes. No,
'Cause the approach
agree
was
with
to
you.
have to include, like you said, so many different genres in there.
Yeah.
And so many, sometimes it's traditional orchestral, sometimes it's like film noir type thing. You have to. If it was constant music, I think it would start to become distracting. But they gave it the space that it needed,
Right.
which was. But I just want to finish talking about
Go ahead, please,
the intro because there's some interesting stuff here. So when talking about like metal splitting up,
Yeah.
and like the power metal side of things, the Iron Maiden,
Yeah.
the lyrics are generally, and I think this comes from sort of like Led Zeppelin. Their lyrics are very frequently fantasy influenced, and that goes right like perfectly together with the aesthetic of anime. It's very high energy, it's very loud, bombastic, fast, and
Dramatic.
which is the opposite of kind of like the Black Sabbath like original approach to metal, which is very slow, very like evil, not very uplifting. You know what I mean? So it makes sense to me that kind of adventurous tone of those metal songs they're about like heroes, war, dragons, blah 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 blah.
Right.
Like these are the themes that sort of fit the type of stories that I would see in like a lot of those popular anime.
I think you're bringing up a really good point here. I see what you mean. I feel like
It wouldn't fit if it was like a doom and gloom like satanic metal. You
but
know
there's
what I mean?
like there's I feel like there's animes like Attack on Titan has crazy metal openings. Like one of them, I'm thinking of one specifically where it's like orchestral metal almost. And I feel like metal has this energy, and this like dramatic energy to it that fits well in stories that are looming gloom, such as Attack on Titan and Death Note. But the thing is, the issue I'm having kind of right now is I'm realizing that like we're talking a lot about metal, but like I feel like the first opening is like there's a lot more rock. No,
I mean there is a lot of overlap, I would say.
but like don't you think it's
like-
more
like
rock than metal though?
If you look at those early metal bands
Yeah.
and say to yourself, is this metal or rock? It's tough to say. It's not
Right,
It's not white or black. It's kind of a gradual
There's
shift.
like okay, that's a fair. That's
Like if you're listening to Cannibal Corpse, this is definitely unambiguously metal.
rock and roll.
But if you're listening to like Deep Purple or like Led Zeppelin,
Right.
or like those early guys, the early Judas Priest, where like it's like almost metal. It's tough to make the distinction.
No, I
so.
totally understand.
I've listened to metal nerds debate that all day, and I'm like, that's not really what interests me. It's more like the tracing back like where these sounds came from. You know what I mean? Like that's what I find interesting. But it's worth noting that I googled like I was like, when was this airing? Like when did they produce it? It was 2006, and it made total sense to me because those power metal bands that I was talking about earlier were really having like a day in the sun in 2006.
Yeah, they did.
Because of almost entirely because of one song that I think was some kind of sleeper hit. And I'm talking about, I bet you know the song. You know Dragon Force?
Of course.
Through the Fire and the Flames.
Guitar Hero.
Guess what year that came out?
2006.
2006.
Oh my gosh,
So-
that's a good nugget you found there.
So I don't know if it was a deliberate decision. I know the song came out before the show did, but I think the show would have already been in production by the
100%,
time
100%.
that sort of power metal resurgence was happening. So I'm not saying that the decision to have the intro sound a lot like Dragon Force was made because of it was a hit.
Right.
But I just mean it was like a fortunate, like alignment timing wise. It was very like and maybe it was part of like what influenced it. Because if I had to guess, if there's like a Venn diagram, right? And you got Dragon Force fans and you have anime fans, I'm guessing that there's a huge
Overlap.
chunk that I think that it makes complete, because people want something with like a fun, adventurous tone, and it's a little campy. Like I think a lot of anime, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's fair to say they kind of have a campy tone, right?
There's genres with many series that have campy tones.
Yeah.
Is what I could say.
Yeah, I know some of them are a bit more like dramatic, like Attack on Titan, as you said.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
it's not even. I'm very curious to listen to that second theme that you were talking about now when they changed the intro.
Yeah.
It's not so much that like the fact that they're screaming in that makes it less. It's more about like what the lyrical content is. And so I wrote. Obviously, I don't speak Japanese, so I was like looking at what the translations are for the lyrics
For the first opening?
for the first opening.
Yeah.
And I found it was a pretty interesting look into like how it connects
To Death
to the
Note?
theme of the actual show.
Okay.
I don't know if it was a song that was commissioned for the show itself,
I
or
believe
if
it
it was
wasn't.
just a thing they heard, they liked it, and they were like, "Let's use this."
I
for the
believe
show.
it wasn't a
Okay.
commission for the show.
Okay,
I could be
interesting.
wrong, but I don't think it's the case.
So I'm just gonna read like little clips from
Yeah,
it that
for
I
sure.
think are interesting. Okay. Within the spreading darkness, we exchanged vows of revolution. Right. So the one of the first things they establish in the show, they're like spreading darkness. Criminals are on the rise. There's
Right.
a lot of like not
This
so much
world
organized.
is so rotten.
Yeah,
like light
exactly.
and like comparison to Ryuk seems flash bang bang. Yeah, I know
exactly,
what you're talking about.
exactly. And Light wants to be some kind of like bringer of justice. He's
Or
like
God.
"Ooh."
Yeah.
Exactly. Like he's disillusioned with how like chaotic the world has
Or how
become.
rotten it is from the inside.
So we already have like that one connection.
yeah.
A flower of evil sprouted because it was loved. Pretty much exactly what we were just saying. Because I won't let anyone interfere with everything that will come about from now on. The fruit told of the future. The city has forgotten reasoning. City has forgotten reasoning. That makes a lot of sense to me. Like we're talking about like same thing. Like criminality is on the rise. So it's like this is the intro song. I'm going to be contrasting this against the outro later, because this is like what you put at the beginning. This is like, ooh, darkness is on the rise, and he wants to be like kind of a heroic figure. Right.
Right.
I turn dreams into ideals. Why am I a broken messiah? That's the banger of the whole song. That's the bar. You know what I mean? Like he sees himself as kind of like messiah figure. He's like, I mean, he's literally called
Yeah.
Light. It's not subtle. Like it's very clear. But I liked how
Yes.
the lyrics of the intro kind of like played into that.
I find this really interesting, Q. I really think that you're bringing like stuff. This is what I like about podcasting with you, is that like I've listened to this song, I've covered it, but have I really listened to the lyrics? No, and it brings a new dimension into like how the music influences the anime, or like the relations between the music and the anime. But like maybe stepping a bit more back from the intro track. What other songs like that are not the outro? Because we'll conclude with that. Stood out to you, like there's L's theme, obviously. There's the Misa theme, that you and I covered. This is like maybe
I was
a
surprised.
fun
Yeah, we
tidbit.
can get into the Misa. Misa's the love interest, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Misa is the love interest character. That I'll just leave it at that, because you obviously you'll get to that when you get to that.
Should we talk about a little bit of the backstory of how we met?
Yeah,
Or
we
the
can-
first time we hung out is a fun little thing.
Yeah, go
Because
ahead.
I had completely forgotten what that song was from.
Yeah, go for
But the first, so we met at a random college, it was
Party.
it was a party, and then you said, hey, you should come over sometime, we'll jam on some ideas. And you were, I think, in the middle of making a cover for that song when
Yes.
I arrived, and you were like, hey, can you help me? I have a guitar, can you just like play a couple of these parts?
Yes.
Never heard the song before, so I just sort of learned them by ear, recorded them and down, and then you released it, and I was like, oh, that was a fun little thing. All these years later, we both now live in Montreal, and
Here
and
we
you
are.
said, hey, guess what's coming up? And I'm like, oh, what's going on? You told me, hey, check out this show, we're going to make a podcast of it. and we're watching this together, and the song pops up, and I was like, "Oh my god, 2015 nostalgia, let's go!"
Yeah,
or actually, it would have been 2016,
2017.
17.
2017.
Okay, so that
Because
was
it was like right before I moved.
literally 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's
Isn't that
crazy.
wild? Yeah.
It's a full circle a full circle thing. But I think like that song itself very powerful, very
It's
powerful.
a beautiful, yeah. It's very 90s. You know what I mean? Talk about the score being eclectic and kind of like taking a lot of different influences from a lot of disparate sources.
Yeah.
It is it sounds like something Mazzy Star might do, like very kind of slow.
Mhm.
This one I will agree with you is atmospheric. That's
Yeah, this one is.
we were having this
atmospheric.
discussion
We
earlier.
were having this discussion earlier about how, like just like I use, you know, I'll just say it. I use a little bit of artificial intelligence to just throw ideas back and forth, like how to put my notes. And Q was critical of that in the sense of like, you know, how can you use AI for this? It's like it's not necessarily the way to do it. I think it's just different approaches.
I think AI is like a writing tool is good, but it's not really known for its fact checking. You know what I mean?
its musical
that's why
analysis
yeah.
ideas. But I just like spitting stuff into AI and just seeing what it spits back out and just seeing if there's like more information to that. That's like the way I like to use it. But anyways, and I was saying, well, you know, I find this there's music in Death Note that is atmospheric. You know, the AI pointed that out. And then we start the episode and it starts with The World, which is obviously not an atmospheric song. And you were like, oh, look, it's so atmospheric, Giant, isn't it? Look how atmospheric it is. But
yeah,
like,
I was miming on you a bit, but
Yeah,
you're,
but like-
you're right. Like as we got into the
Actual
music
content.
other than the intro,
Yeah.
and it was just like the sort of wallpaper, like the background stuff
Yeah.
while scenes were happening. I was
Yes.
like, oh, some of this is kind of has an atmosphere.
that, and I feel like also Low of Solipsism is the like it's not Light's theme, but it's definitely the theme that like as like Light's killing off a lot of villains. You know, it's a great track with like choral elements to it, and like I think like the chants are like in Greek or something. It seems just like beautiful the way it's put together. There's a build up, and it's what I like about this one. It's like it's one of the few ones that don't really have like many parts to it. It just kind of like here's part one, here's part two, and then it just ends on these like church bells, which I kind of want to get into this a little bit. Like there's like sound design elements in these Death Note soundtracks that I really like, such as the church bells, and like later on in the series, I don't think that we really hear them in the first few episodes, but like there's like these high distorted like impacty sounds a little bit like almost like drum triggers, you know, just kind of to
Right.
add like to like layer in like the impact of the attack of the percussion. You see what I mean? So
right.
um,
I think at this point, it's almost standard practice, like to add in drum triggers to like just sort of enhance the sound of an acoustic drum kit.
yes,
And I've definitely seen like the production community are kind of like split in two on that. Like a lot of people believe that it's sort of making it's making drums sort of all sound the same, and that's
Mhm.
the issue with it. But a lot of people think it's a tool like any other. If you use it smartly, that's not an issue. So
Agreed.
what do you think about that? I'm curious.
No, I'm with you. I think that you have to innovate with the new technologies. You can't just be no. Like I'm not using this. I'm not gonna play around with this. It's
Call that
cheating.
the Luddite producer. They like reject any technology that was created after 1965. They're like, I don't trust this.
I'm not like that.
Right.
But I also don't. I don't want to knock those people because if that's their way to do it and it works for them, you know, good on you.
I'm not like that, but there are a lot of producers that I really love the final product on that do operate that way. Like I love a Jack White record, you know. I mean, he's not a producer, but he has a strong sort of hand in how things are done on that side of, you know, the record. Anyway, however, we're kind of getting
No, it's all
sidetracked
good.
here.
I mean, this is we're talking to talk. It's good. All right.
I wanted to get into something that you mentioned a second ago,
Yes.
which you're talking about the church bells.
Yes.
What I have noticed about the music in this show is there's a very strong church kind of
Vibe.
theme. It's very like a lot of Christian themes come up.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because like there's a lot of different types of Christian music, obviously, because it's been
Well,
around
I mean,
for
the choral
2,000
elements
years.
we were talking about earlier.
Okay, I'm going to list them all right now. We
Please.
got Gregorian chant,
We do.
and if people don't know what I mean by that, it's some very dry harmonies from the Gregorian monks of the 1500s. It was mostly fifths, mostly fourth, like very hollow, you might call it. But, and this is going to sound very silly, the place that most people today, by the way, I just saw you have a Death Note poster. I just noticed. I know what
Oh,
that
dude,
is
I have
now.
a Death Note poster. I have. This is like audio only. It's unfortunate. I have Death Note figurines. I have a Death Note notebook that I bought at a
Legit
convention,
super fan.
and I also have a Death Note side story book that.
Oh yeah, the Notebook. I saw the
Yeah.
Is it just for okay? Have you ever murdered someone with it? Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Well,
you ain't been caught
that
yet.
is a subject change and a half, bro.
Okay.
You just came out.
So
there.
it doesn't work. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you, it's not gonna work because I'm not gonna try, and I don't even want to discuss that.
Yeah, damn it.
No, but in all seriousness,
Okay. Get back on topic.
On
though,
the church bells, yeah.
So what I was gonna say is Gregorian chant. It's typically most people know it today from Halo. That's typically where like the
Absolutely. I was thinking of covering that song as well. Actually,
I'm not gonna sing any more than that because YouTube copyright will come after us. And
you're learning, Q.
see, I've been listening.
You're listening.
Anyway, so yeah, that's where most people know Gregorian chant from. But it was obviously it has like a long history. And I think I was just talking about the lyrics in the intro. He's talking about dark Messiah, right?
Yes.
That's the way Light sees himself, and I think he sees himself as a Messiah. Because, Jesus came, he brought knowledge, lessons, merciful, all these things, and he's the dark version of that because he's sort of inflicting justice, but through violence. He's like a dark version of that same thing. So the church bells, the Gregorian chant, which was like from the Christian monks from the 1500s, all of these make complete sense to me. Like
Right.
I can see like the reasoning of like how they put them in there. By the way, God's first command was "Let there be light." I don't know. I'm just like throwing that in there.
Yo, trivia man over here.
There's so many like biblical. There's so many biblical like connections in this, and I was thinking about it. I know it's based on a Japanese manga. I don't know how much the show changed from that. Am I saying that right? Manga,
yeah.
Okay. Some people say manga. I don't know.
I think
which one.
I mean, I think we understand. What
tomato.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know how much they changed from the source material in the show, but I was looking at how I was recognizing this and that as like kind of biblical themes. I was like, what is the actual like religious demographic of Japan? Like, is this kind of like a, you know what I'm saying? Do you know?
Right. I see. What
Like
you mean.
it's. I know it's not like a Christian nation. I assumed it was like kind of more.
I honestly don't know enough to comment personally.
Okay. No, I was just curious because it's like they're using sounds from medieval Europe. So I'm like, I know it's based in Japan, but like I don't know. I was curious if you know anything about the author. I was like, is he?
No, I don't.
He like takes his influence from
I
like,
really
kind of
like
different cultures. And
I've
putting them
honestly like
together.
the only thing I know about the author is just like copy pasting his name into metadata when I make a Death Note cover.
Oh, he's a pretty mysterious guy. I was looking at. I was trying to find information on him, and it was apparently he's. Like,
I'm not surprised.
He likes to
hear
say
that.
anonymous. He likes to. Yeah, I don't know. Very interesting. I was just curious if you knew what the
No, of
backstory
course.
was that because I know Japan is like 1% Christian. So I was like, why is this story so biblical in its influences, in its music, in its etc.
Right. I
But,
think it's the vibe of it more. But because when you talk about like biblical, there's one song. I don't know if it's plays in the first 5 episodes.
It's in the first episode. A kid in class reads the Bible.
But if I say the song Requiem in Death Note, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, that song
It's heavy, man.
has power.
Oh yeah.
That song has
I
staying
was about
power.
to hum it, but I
it
caught
has
myself.
presence. It has vibe, and it's literally just vocal.
Oh yeah, choral music.
No,
is
but
stunning.
the thing is this song when it comes on, man, and you just see light in action, you really feel like you're all in there. You're listening, you're paying attention, and you're captivated. What, like, just from the musical textures themselves, when you listen to that piece, like, what did you feel? Like, what did you feel when you listened to that enter your ears?
Well, it was not the first time I heard
Okay,
it. I have like a long association with the music. It's like it's evocative of exactly that same period, that same time and place that I was talking about.
right.
That Gregorian like
Yeah.
1500. I know it came a little bit later, but I really think that I was trying to put myself in the mindset of someone living at that time in that era
Mm-hmm.
when the music was being written and that choral sort of church was really the only spot that someone in the 1500s or 1700s even would be hearing that level of reverb, and it's something that we're so used to hearing today.
No, you got it on every plugin.
But those big halls, and I think as a music kind of oriented person, I think I would have been like a hardcore church boy back in 1600 I think I would have been so taken by like the power of like when 100 people are singing at the same time in unison.
I
Like
think power is a great word, a great word to associate to that, because
yeah, like we're so used to music being everywhere all the time. We're in an elevator, we're in a grocery store. It kind of like blends into the
yeah,
background.
it just
But at
becomes
that
part of the instant
time,
core.
if someone, you know, if someone is busking in the middle of a market or a street or
Right.
something, I feel like you stop and stare, like your jaw drops because their bar of musicality, what they were used to
What they were exposed to.
yeah,
Yeah.
and on a typical in a
Right.
typical life as a as a peasant, right? Music was such a rare thing that it was just that much more impactful.
Right.
So I was thinking about that listening to it. It's like it really like yeah. I really I don't think it's a bad thing how
No.
accessible music is, but there was something special about it at that time.
Right.
I think.
It's I get what you're saying. It takes away a certain element to it, like how
It's not as special.
It's not as special. I think
Right.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Um,
Anything in moderation, it just has a bit more meaning because it's oh my
Yeah.
god, I've never heard this before.
Yeah,
Blah blah
yeah.
blah. The only time you get to hear big orchestral music is if you could afford to go to those big concert halls and it was like a rare event. You know,
yes. I wanted to hit on like two other songs before we get to like the rest of your stuff, and then eventually to the outro. Oh man, I am in love with a song called Fuan. Fuan. It's in the series. I don't know if you listened to it.
I definitely listened to it, but I don't remember by
So
name.
it's like
Whose theme is it? Like
it's not a theme to any character. So this
Which
song
scene
plays like in the first part of this of Death Note in the first season, and I think it's used when describing the Shinigami realm and how just how destroyed it is from like how it's just like not what it used to be anymore. But the thing is, we have like these tonalities that feel very sad and just feel very broken apart. Like the way the piano is played, it's like dotted out. Like it's like it falls not like a glissando, but it just kind of breaks into like ton ta ton ta ton ta ton. You know,
cascades down.
yeah, it cascades. That's a really good way to put it. You're good at this.
Oh, it's like I've done this before.
And what I really enjoyed the most about this song is the atmosphere of it.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, Q, I know it's like it was a meme, like the atmosphere of it, but
That's
I
one of
feel
your
like
faves, eh?
it's one of my faves for sure. Absolutely recommend it. I'll let more of it play out in the edit here. And the other one, man, there's this song and the title of it kills me. I love it. Lights up, light.
Lights up, light.
That's a song on there. Another song that has just captivating energy, mysterious vibes, but it powers on, you know, and it has a really nice sonic palette. You know, we have like a lot of nice orchestration and instrumentation here with the melodies, and I just love the way it came together. Oh man, like this is the thing with this anime. Like all the songs are so good.
Yeah.
All the songs are so good. You know,
the music.
you know how good this anime. I was considering buying vinyls of it, but it's
Do they print?
expensive. Oh yeah,
Oh wow.
I saw them. I saw them at a store when I was in the U.S. Bro, they had like the original Death Note, like first. Like there's multiple volumes here, but they had the first volume on vinyl, and I was so close to buying some. But yeah, I just wanted to interject those points. Let's go.
100%. You were talking about like they use a specific piece that like to underscore a scene, you know, like there's a dramatic part. And the first time that I noticed that, I think this was in the second episode, there's a montage of him the first time he goes on like a killing spree, basically.
Yes.
Of criminals. A theme that is extremely reminiscent of O Fortuna is playing. The
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun.
yeah. Feel free to edit that out if I'm
No, we'll
gonna
keep it
flag
in.
us.
We're actually
I think it's
synced
like
on that
under
one.
5 seconds, right? That's the rule.
I don't know. We'll see.
Pretty sure that's the rule. Anyway,
We're like 30 minutes
Um,
deep at this point. I think we'll be fine.
I love that's my favorite moments of like when I'm listening to the soundtrack of something is those thematic connections
Yes.
of what O Fortuna is about versus what the show is about.
Right.
Because to be honest, like listening to a lot of I used to love listening to soundtracks because I loved there's a kind of epic cinematic, huge quality to the music of
Absolutely.
soundtracks
Absolutely.
that I think I was really craving, because you don't really get that from pop music. If you're not gonna hear that level of orchestration and just, yeah. I hate to overuse this word, but epic is truly the descriptor that I would use. That's what I was craving. So I would
Yes.
listen to these soundtracks of just random properties that I liked.
May I add,
And-
godlike.
Yeah,
Godlike.
it is something that I slowly stopped doing,
Mhm.
because there's a kind of uniformity to the way that
Mm.
at least American and British, the common movies that people in this country watch.
Right.
There's a kind of uniformity to the way those things are composed and arranged, and after a while you start to pick up on the patterns, and I kind of lost interest, and then I started listening instead to bands and pop and,
Right,
and
right,
whatever,
right.
and I still lean more in that direction. But once in a while, there's orchestral music that I love enough in a score that it sounds unique enough that I actually take note of it. And I know that it was probably a financial decision on the part of the producers to not use O Fortuna itself, if I had to
Oh my
guess.
gosh.
So
Must have been so
what
much money
this
if you
is something that I've had to do myself in like my studio work a lot, where someone says, we've been using this song in the, it's just sitting in the editing timeline of this thing we're creating, but obviously we don't have the rights to it, we don't have some legal thing,
right.
so they hire a composer. It's like, can you compose a piece that is evocative of this thing that we can't use?
Yes.
And yeah. So it's an interesting kind of creation process, because the way composers used to do it is that they would just show them the completed show or movie, whatever it is, and then just be like, score it, decide what you
Right.
want to do, make all the creative decisions you want. But now when you come in, they've been editing the show and the movie to the beats, you know what I mean, of the
Yes.
temporary music that they put in there.
Temp track. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just explaining because I know I'm
You're
just
right. You're right. No, you're right.
Yeah.
There's more than me and just you here. You're right.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking for the listeners, like I'm gonna explain the background of things.
Yeah.
So like that was definitely the feeling that I got when I was hearing that killing spree scene where he starts as a montage of him, just taking out all these criminals, and it
Yes.
was like he did a really good job, like sort of giving you that exact same feeling. You know what I mean?
Absolutely agree. And the thing is, I feel like there's the development in that song. There's like a progression that relates to the transformation of Light as a character in the first episode of Death Note. Like we go from straight A student to like murderer.
Yeah. It
In-
really had like
in 20 minutes.
a quick transformation.
Very quick
yeah.
transformation, but seamless.
You want to know why it was seamless? I was thinking about this. I was like, because it seems fast at first, but when I rewatched the first episode, I went back and because I was looking for some piece, I was like, let me re-listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the scene where there's a kid who's reading in class, and he's reading about like morality. I wrote down the exact quote because I was like, I want to get this. He says, "Follow the teachings of God, then the blessings of the sea will become bountiful, and there will be no storms." So during that scene, Light is in class, and he's kind of leaning on his
He's
hand.
bored.
He's checked out.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're hinting at the fact that he's like uninterested in like this sort of devoutness and being pious and stuff. He always had like that dark streak from the beginning.
Yeah.
So I like the foreshadowing stuff like that, and the music in that moment completely went with that. Yeah, exactly. So like that's a clever like placement of like you introduce those themes, and then the music that
Supports them.
underscores those moments.
Yeah.
They don't make sense, and then when later it happens, you're like, oh, now that music makes sense because this is
That's the thing.
hinting
It's like,
at where
it's so
it would
open
go.
to interpretation as well, because I feel like that music supports it from the get-go. Like that music made sense to me right away, but the way you're describing it also makes sense because why is this here? That questioning can occur, and I totally.
Here's a quick question for you that will kind of like maybe make some of the musical decisions make a bit more sense. When he says the blessings of the sea will become bountiful and there will be no storms, there's like a water kind of motif there. Does that connect to something that happens later on? You know what I mean?
Say the quote one more time.
Follow the teachings of God, then the blessings of the sea will become bountiful and there will be no storms. And that's what the kid in class is reading while Light is like, like bored. And that's the first time that you hear that dun 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 dun, dun like that delay unit, that kind of mystery theme.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's the moment they chose to introduce that. Does that connect to something? Because I haven't finished the show, so
I can
I
say
don't
that
know.
it does, but
Okay.
I can't say what it does.
Oh, you're gonna spoil it.
No, I'm not gonna spoil it.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not gonna spoil it for you.
But you do know.
Yeah, I feel like there's
Shall
some
I plug my
relations.
ears while you explain for the listeners what happened? I assume most of the people listen to this have seen the entire
Yes,
show.
but
that
the dynamic here for this show is that I don't want Q to watch the full anime. I want him to think of the music, and and then we can have an exchange of two different perspectives. Because if we both watch the whole anime ourselves,
Of course.
it's not gonna be the same.
Yeah.
But maybe starting to like slowly wind down here. What are our other points and tracks that you wanted to hit on before we finish on the outro of Death Note?
Yes, I have some others. One sec. There is a theme that they play a lot when the cat and mouse sort of chase is happening between L and Light. Should I be saying Kira?
No,
I
you
guess
can
it's
say.
a bit. Okay, they're both right. Between L and Light, they're trying to each is trying to outwit the other. And the music that plays during that is a common pattern among stories about, like deduction and detectives trying to figure out who the serial killer is. Stories like that, because it sounds mysterious and it makes you intrigued. It's really effective. Like
Right.
it makes you sort of like lean in and go like, whoa, like
What's going on
who's
here?
gonna outwit
Yeah,
who?
who's gonna?
And so usually they'll take like a repeating riff or an idea and just kind of loop it. And they'll just loop and loop forever. Like it's like a kind of droning quality to it. But the elements underneath that will continue to change.
Mhm.
So it's like this thing on top stays the same. This thing underneath changes. And it underscores those creepy moments because the music itself it sounds like sneaking. Like it sounds like a literal cat and mouse. And it's such a perfect, like the thing that it reminded me of is there's a record by Mike Oldfield called Tubular Bells, and it's very famous mostly because of its use in The Exorcist. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
It goes like na 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 na.
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
It's very, very, very similar. And I think the reason why is because it's like oh yeah, okay. So Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells, The Exorcist. It's the most famous. This is a perfect example of like when you take a riff, loop it, and then the other elements change underneath. That's exactly that Tubular Bells piece. It's a very instantly recognizable riff. That dun 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 dun. And what that riff is most famous for is its use in The Exorcist. And I think that was a very deliberate decision because the themes that people associate with that piece now that are of The Exorcist do connect to what this show is about, and that's mainly like the kind of religious themes. You know what I'm talking about? The Exorcist is a story about an innocent little girl that gets possessed by a demon. And I know you're saying that Ryuk is not exactly a demon, is more of a god of death.
But I mean, you can
the mythology is different,
right?
But the role that they play is kind of similar.
It's similar. No, I agree.
Because,
You got a good point on that.
It's like he's a corrupting influence.
Yes.
And like the theme, like that Mike Oldfield, he wrote this thing. It's called Tubular Bells. It's an instrumental piece with no lyrics, obviously. We can't say exactly what it's about, but people associate it with a story about a little girl being possessed by a demon. And it's like, that's the theme of that movie, corruption of influence, or innocence, excuse me. Corruption of innocence. And that's kind of what I'm watching happen to Light as the theme goes. So that was a immediate, like as soon as I heard that music, I was like, oh, I know what's going to happen. It was like building anticipation. It was a really effective like musical choice, you know what I mean? And again, it might be a temp music situation again, where they just put Tubular Bells in and then said, oh, wait, this is an extremely,
right.
Yeah, it's an iconic song by now, obviously. So I just thought that was an interesting decision.
Is interesting. No, it definitely is.
Yeah, lots of, like I said, tons of like biblical connections. That's like that's the theme of today.
I mean,
it's like
it fits well with Death Note. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like a story of an innocent young high school boy slowly becoming like a god of death, basically. Which
in
is
a
like,
sense, there are some.
I can't get into spoilers, but there's a lot of truth to the last few words of your sentence, is what I'll say.
The last few.
But yeah,
okay.
and then did you want to get to the outro? Or was there like some more trivia that you had?
Oh yeah. Okay. So the credits song is once again very Iron Maiden. You know, very power metal. I don't like the vocalist as much as Iron Maiden, but he's like he's bringing that same kind of like adventurous tone. It sounded, and this you're gonna think I'm crazy.
I already do.
The intro of that credit song sounds exactly like halfway through the verse of Money, Money, Money by ABBA. Listen to it. If you're at home listening to this, pause the video, pull up Money, Money, Money by ABBA, and you'll hear that dun, 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 like that descending guitar line. It's identical, I swear to God. This is a complete coincidence. It's not like the most unique thing.
Wait, are we talking about the same ending? Wait,
I was just chuckling to myself because I enjoyed that connection.
I just want to make sure. Are you talking about for the ending song? Because there's
Yeah. Dun dun dun. Yeah. Money, Money, Money by ABBA.
Really?
I swear. I'm not kidding. It is. But tell me, I want to know if people also hear this. Am I crazy?
At Cruz Gordon on Instagram, please let him know.
Yes, please spam me with messages telling me how I'm completely wrong and it doesn't sound anything like ABBA. I would love that. Anyway, I'm just curious. I thought I'd throw that out there because maybe someone will have had the same thought. But
yeah.
Once in a while that happens to me. Every time I'm listening to music, if two notes seem to line up, I'm like, oh, that reminds me of this other song.
That's also Money Money by ABBA.
Yeah, exactly. Everything just sounds like that song. I could be listening to, like Cannibal Corpse and like I'll be like, oh, this kind of sounds like ABBA. That's the second time we brought up Cannibal Corpse today. I don't know why that happened.
It is what it is.
They're on my mind apparently.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking about the credits,
yes,
okay? So just like the intro, I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to read a bit of the lyrics.
Please.
And talk about why that sort of makes sense as an outro.
Okay.
So intro lyrics, they're talking about darkness is spreading. It sprouted because it was loved. And here I come like a dark messiah. I turn dreams into ideals, right? Here's the ending lyrics. I dreamed a dream that no one could see. I threw away everything that I didn't need. I'm holding these feelings I can't give up in my heart. Even if my feet fall victim to the shackles of sacrifice, in between reality and my ideal, I can't hold back the flooding impulses because I have a strong desire to accomplish. Deceit, fear, vanity, melancholy. I'm not weak enough to believe any of these negative perceptions. I am a trickster who doesn't know solitude. I'm a trickster who doesn't know solitude because I'm like fooling the cops. I'm messing with, them confounding them. But I don't know solitude because there's a god of death hanging around with me all the time, talking in my ear like a little devil sitting on my shoulder. Is it like I love this so much because like the progression that you get from the intro lyrics to the outro. Intro introduces the darkness, like the problem, of the episode, and then the outro is like I dreamed a dream no one could see. It's like I envision like a better future, and he's like trying to make that come true in his own way, and it's like a misguided way, but it's like his version of justice. Like that's exactly a line that they say in the show. It's like this I am justice. Whoever is doing this killing has a very juvenile view of what justice is.
That's what how L describes light. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think the lyrics connect to that in a pretty interesting way. Did you ever read the translation of the credit song? I'd never heard of this band before. It's Nightmare. It's like a Japanese metal band, and apparently they're most popular for their anime soundtracks. Like
so I know the band's called Nightmare. Never listened to the lyrics though. I haven't taken the time to listen to the lyrics just because whenever I cover a song, I focus on sheet music and MIDI files, so it's more like the lyrical content just kind of goes by the wayside. But, I think that there's like an interesting dichotomy here. There's a difference between the intro and the outro, how you described it, because like one kind of opens up what the adventure will be like, and the other one concludes, something that happens in every episode, the cat and mouse of it, and the judgment of light on, are you good enough to live on this planet? And then the judgment of L on light being like, you're messed up for this.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, the intro is like, it's literally light and dark, like lightness and darkness. The intro introduces the darkness, and then the outro is, I dreamed a dream knowing I threw away everything I didn't need, holding on to these feelings. It's like he becomes like a kind of heroic figure, dark hero, or what do they call anti-hero? You know what I mean? Would you call him an anti-hero? Does he fall into that category?
No.
No?
He's it's one of those few animes where the antagonist is the main character.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's another one that
I love a morally gray character. Those are usually the interesting ones. The Walter White.
You're gonna be a fan of L for sure, and you're gonna be a fan of everything else that L brings to the series. It's funny because the next unless was there other points you want to say about the outro before I kind of take it from here?
The outro. That's all I got to say. Yeah.
Q, where can people find you? If they listen to this and they want to you obviously you compose music, you're an audio engineer, you're out there, you're grinding. Where can people find
all kinds of stuff? Yeah. Most of what I post is like on my Instagram, which is Caduce Gordon 1. My first name is QUDDUS, last name Gordon. So, do I have to spell Gordon? That's a pretty common one, I think.
Good.
Sweet. So follow me if you're curious as to what I do. Anime is obviously not my thing, but Jaian's slowly breaking my walls down. He's got me into it. One day at a time.
I got you. 6 years in the works, guys.
6 years. It only took 6 years, and then in another 6 years, I'll watch a second anime, and then it'll be
yeah. We'll see. We'll see where it's at that point.
Glacial pace.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was it. That was all 3 conversations with Caduce Gordon. Make sure to go check out the last 2 previous episodes if you have not already. And I really appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next episode of JaianMusic Notes next week. Bye, everyone.